Hi everyone, Quench the Thirst Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Sigur Rós record, Átta. This is the latest full-length album from legendary Icelandic band Sigur Rós. Even though there has been some low-scale ambient and drone output from the band over the past 10 years, this is being billed as their first album in like a decade. In a way, I guess it is their most formal album experience since their 2013 record Kveikr, which I didn't love, admittedly. However, this new record Átta is making me miss the slightly dark turn the band took on that LP, even if at the time I didn't think they pushed it as far as they could. Let me talk about the direction of this new record and then the execution. Átta is likely the band's most orchestral record yet, which I don't say with the knowledge that the group has never used this much arranged instrumentation on a record before or anything like that. I say that because I don't think sonically the band has ever leaned this hard simply on the orchestral bits, to the point where this thing is sounding almost like a modern classical album, and the electric guitars, the more rock side of this band's instrumental palette traditionally, just isn't present. Now, some might react to that description and think, okay, well, does that mean the record is like 2012's Valtari, something like that? It's a little ambient, it's a little dreamy, the strings are much more present, and I would say not exactly, because I think Átta is much more direct in its songwriting and structuring. Many of the tracks on this thing end somewhere between 4 and 5 minutes. Not a whole lot of time is spent building or meandering, wandering about super rich and ornate instrumental palettes. Again, the song structures on this thing are pretty cut and dry and not super build-oriented. And over a lot of this chamber instrumentation, you will often hear frontman Jonsi's lead vocals kind of soaring above it all like an angel or a cherub, very boyish inflections. However, I will say his singing doesn't come across with nearly as much personality as it has on past records such as Talk, like in the very intimate moments of that LP. So I feel like in general that is as clear-cut a description I can give in terms of this record's stylistic direction. So now let me get a little bit into the execution, which is less than desirable in my opinion. I mean, I feel like this band has been incorporating strings and horns and ornate arrangements into their very fantastical brand of rock music for years now, decades even. So if they were to lean simply on the arrangements, like, they should hypothetically totally nail it, no? But in fact, they don't. Far from it, and for a handful of reasons. The instrumental palettes on this thing, number one, are flavorless, they're redundant, they're one note, pretty much sounding like the same ill-defined blob of dense and compression-heavy strings for track after track, which, again, surprise, because for bands that are typically affiliated with that post-rock genre, dynamics is the thing. Dynamics is the name of the game. You start playing a track that at one point is very subtle and very soft and very quiet, eventually progressing to something gargantuan and loud. And look, it's cool that after so many years, Sigur Rós may want to kind of back off of that formula a little bit, but that doesn't mean you throw dynamics entirely out of the window and just deliver a bunch of like completely bricked out string pieces. This thing is more like a monolithic, sterile tundra where not a single thing thrives. And look, nothing against very desolate and apocalyptic records, but that is very much not the vibe this record is going for. And that feeling of everything being so samey isn't just limited to the mixes, it's also the vocal performances and melodies, many of which move at a very glacial pace and don't have very distinct or memorable characteristics to them. So overall, not a single moment on this record truly stood out to me, to be honest. And I'm kind of floored that anybody's been finding this record to be all that mystical or enchanting, spellbinding, because I thought much of the time it was very detail deficient and painfully basic, to be frank about it. Like, what's the point of leaning in so heavily on all these orchestrations if at the end of the day it's all going to sound so airbrushed and artificial and textureless? More or less, I feel like I was listening to slight variations on a lot of the same melodic and sonic ideas for track after track after track for just under an hour. Even the 9-minute closing track that I thought was gonna maybe kind of pull out all the stops, do something big, was a massive disappointment, as the core song ends at around the 5-minute mark, and then from there we just kind of get a lot of the same themes chord-wise being played over until the true ending of the track's runtime by some very ambient-leaning synths, and yeah, that's all. All things considered, I feel like Átta is truly the least adventurous, interesting, and versatile record from this band. If you've heard several tracks from it, you've pretty much heard the whole thing. Nearly everything they've released up until this point blows this project out of the water. I would even take some of the, weird little ambient side routes the group has been releasing as of late over what they did here. I guess I could say this project is listenable, but not much else. I'm feeling a light 4 on this thing. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Sigur Rós, forever.